across the globe, from Scotland to China, with world's greatest train ride videos. Experience the breathtaking thrill and adventure of authentic train travel as you follow the tracks to unique history, fascinating people, and breathtaking scenery. All aboard!
Temporarily inferior. The Soviets north of the 38th parallel, the Americans to the south. June 25th, 1950, marks the brutal invasion of the liberal South by the communist North. The United States and 15 member countries of the United Nations retaliate. A horrible war, which with the Chinese invasion drags on for 3 years. A country ravaged. The remains are once again divided into two zones, the communist North and the liberal South, a conflict which resolved absolutely nothing. The North, 22 million inhabitants, a bankrupt economy, and a gross national product 6 times inferior to that of the South. The South, smaller, but with a population of 43 million, its regime, a republic, a country whose border with the North is still spiked with bayonets. We are on our way to the village of Panmunjom on the 38th parallel, an enclave which is neutral territory between North and South. It is the periodic meeting place for communist representatives and United Nations delegates. There, the slightest gesture can touch off a new war. From the northern side, a suspicious guard spots us aiming our camera. On the southern side, other guards are equally ready for any eventuality. Fists clenched, motionless, he stares across at his counterpart, who in the space of a second could become his mortal enemy. Cameras and microphones ensure constant surveillance. The conference room. An American and a South Korean. Facing each other, the flags of the United Nations and North Korea. Today, meetings at Panmunjom have become rare. A last look at North Korea as we leave. Our reunification slogan, "No to 2 Koreas." South Korea has no objection. The last train to ride these tracks before the partition is on the line of demarcation, ready to leave. Seoul, capital of South Korea. Pyongyang, capital of North Korea, bordering China. Neither Korea is willing to pay the economic or political price of reunification, and so the negotiations drag on. Young Whale Ban is 44. He had to go to engineering school to become a simple train conductor. In South Korea, competition is fierce, and education a top priority. To make sure that he stays alert, the engineer is required to call off all the signals. It's a state-owned rail system. Jung lives an hour from the center of Seoul. 3 years ago, he bought his apartment with a 20-year mortgage. It has already doubled in value. His wife, 37 years old, She looks after domestic matters only, and especially her husband. It's her duty. Jung loves plants. They're his hobby. He doesn't play any sports and he rarely goes out. He works 44 hours a week with 20 days vacation a year.
시작하세요. 만찬이 준비되어 있습니다. 된장찌개가 얼마나
His wife serves him and doesn't eat until he's done. That's the custom. This hard and fast machismo does have compensations for the wife, however. She handles all the finances and only allows her husband spending money. She makes all the investments and is a member of a women's club which plays the stock market. Moreover, their apartment is her royal domain, as is the education of their children. The husband never interferes. Everything is on the table right from the start of the meal. Vegetable stew, very little meat, fish, or cheese. The food is highly spiced and poor in calories. There's rice, no bread. There are two children, 14 and 12 years old. One wants to be an electronics engineer, the other a chemist. Jung's second passion is rock collecting. Throughout the country, there are specialized rock shops and rock exchanges for buying and trading them. They're collected for their strange shape, their color, their polished or granulated texture. It's a refined hobby based on visual and tactile pleasure. Time to go to work. When they were married, the ceremony was held with surprising pomp, a daily occurrence throughout the country. This young man, dressed in a violet robe, is a used car salesman, but on the day of his wedding, he is a prince. It is a Confucian celebration which complements the civil ceremony. Can we call it a mass? No, there's no divinity to sanctify their union. No priest, but masters of ceremony dressed in white who conduct their ritual and make sure that the symbols are there. This wooden mandarin duck, for example, it is the couple's pledge of fidelity, since in nature these ducks are monogamous and live in couples till death do them part. The chestnuts in the first cup symbolize fertility. She will have many children. The pine, an evergreen tree, stands for eternity. By the association of ideas, the young couple will reap the benefits symbolized by these foods, this plant. Confucianism is more a philosophy than a religion. It affirms the existence of a direct link between heaven and earth. Man, because of his pride and his arrogance, is the disruptive element in the universal order. Only his wisdom can control his destructive impulses. Only symbolic ritual can preserve the cosmic balance. The bride appears, accompanied by two cousins. She walks clumsily, hunched over, ill at ease, her head down as if shackled. This is part of the ritual, to demonstrate her humility. She works as a supermarket cashier. She washes her hands as a proof of the purity of her body and soul. The crown is very important. At the beginning of their honeymoon night, the husband will remove it, thus proving that she is his wife. Scrupulously, the master of ceremonies conducts the ritual. The embroidered scarf symbolizes the protection of the future mother's womb. The rooster has eaten a lot of grain. He's full. It's a good sign. The saki symbolizes the unity of the couple. Women must prepare the food for the men. The groom is the first to drink. The ceremony is over. Once the rites have been accomplished, there's a feeling of serenity. Could they explain the reason why? I don't think so. They are simply in harmony with their universe. You have to be Korean to feel it. It's the mystery of belonging to a culture. Where do Koreans come from? From Central Asia, across Siberia. 1,000-year immigration. Their language is the proof of this. It's closer to Turkish and Hungarian than it is to Chinese and Japanese. Although successful in maintaining their own identity, the cultural and political influence of China would leave a deep impression on them, even before the birth of Christianity. They would adopt Confucianism. Confucius, a Chinese philosopher, lived between 550 and 450 BC. His teachings not only emphasize the importance of rituals such as marriage, but specify that man must be virtuous and cultivated. The first character of Confucius's writings stands for the word study. It's more than a slogan, it's a duty. Interpersonal value, the effort one makes to achieve perfection. This is the ideal to aim for, whether one be head of state or manual laborer. The basket weaver, the potter, whatever the job, one should love it and strive to be the best. Nobility is achieved through this idea much more than birthright. The doctor must have a perfect knowledge of the human body. The medicinal properties of the plants in these sacks should hold no secrets for him. Thus, man establishes relationships based on hierarchy and order. The subordinate must obey, and the leader must balance his power with virtue and moderation. Both must practice humility if society is to exist in harmony. Even if these exacting principles are not strictly observed, as we can well imagine, they nevertheless represent the moral foundation of the country. The Korean flag is symbolic of this search for harmony. It is, at the same time, a civics lesson and an esoteric insight. The white background stands for the earth, the nation, the center circle, the people. The yang is in red inside it. The masculine, represented by light, dryness, and the active principle in nature. In blue, the yin, the feminine, the passive principle, represented by wetness and darkness. The balance is completed by a series of lines standing for the four elements symbolic of a good government: sky, earth, fire, and water. These complementary aspects create stability, temperance, and plenitude. This concern for order is a universally accepted discipline today. It begins upon arriving at the factory. This is the gigantic POSCO Steelworks, a complex which on its own produces 20 million tons of steel annually, more than the entire production of France. The steel is exported to 50 countries, especially Japan. Confucianism has forcefully integrated the idea of duty to the notion of rights, so precious in the Western world. From infancy, each person feels totally involved in what he does. Later, he easily and without constraints adheres to the pattern of the company to which he belongs. One of the results of this concept of duty is the zero-fault product, which is invading the markets of the world. Confucianism is one of the reasons why the Far Eastern countries are so industrial and commercially dynamic. A primary school class. The computer is used from age 10. The steel conglomerate guarantees the schooling of 10,000 children. It maintains a university of 1,500 students. Again, we encounter the first character of Confucius's work, study. So it's not surprising that South Korea has a 98% literacy rate, a major factor in its economic boom. Buddhist monks. Buddhism is far from dead. The country has 7,750 pagodas and retreats. Their heads are shaved. Buddha teaches that one must refuse the embellishment of oneself. The gray cloth robe is also part of this rule, although the elegant cut compensates for its austerity. on their way to the monastery of Hainsa, a unique, enchanting site. Perched on a mountain deep in the forest, everything has been done to isolate it from the world. Construction began in the year 802, when two monks living there as hermits saved a dying queen with their prayers. To show his gratitude, the king had the monastery built. The days of good fortune began. Depicted on the doors are fierce warriors pushing back evil spirits. The dead must not be allowed to take over the site. The study of sacred writings, meditation, these are the examples to follow. The lotus, symbol of the unspoken and total understanding of the universe. Stylized dragons hold up the roof. The inscription reads, "Place of worship of the supreme doctrine." Buddha was born in India. He taught during the 6th century BC. His teachings reached Korea in 372. Here they're less strict about following the rule. Rather than the cold, detached observance of the letter of the law, the emphasis is more on compassion. Buddha left no texts when he died. 3 of his disciples put his teachings into writing. 1 disciple wrote his sermons, another his doctrine, and another the rules of discipline, which translated into Chinese were engraved on 81,528 wooden boards in the 12th century, a monumental task that took 16 years. Extraordinary precautions were taken to protect the wood. It was first immersed in salt water for 3 years, and then in fresh water for another 3 years. It was buried under the earth for 3 more years and finally exposed to the sun for 3 years before being used. A rare sight of a unique work which we had the good fortune to film. Suffering is the end result of passion. The essence of Buddhism is the elimination of passion. Although the doctrine condemns pleasure, it also condemns deprivation and denial. The happy medium lies in the retreat into oneself, which leads to true knowledge and the liberation of the body and the soul. The country's growing religion is Christianity. Churches and temples are being built everywhere. Some followers preach the gospel with the zeal of a revivalist. Out of a population of 43 million, there are 6 million faithful. 3/4 of them are Protestant. Christians have their own schools, universities, hospitals, and orphanages. Nearby, a bones silently affirms the permanence of Buddhism. Newlyweds on their honeymoon. On the express, there's a restaurant next to the cafeteria. Since 1978, all the rolling stock has been manufactured in Korea. There are 4 classes of trains, ranging from the Biluluki, with an average speed of 65 kilometers an hour, to the Sämaul, the deluxe express in which we're now traveling, but which does not exceed 120 kilometers an hour. With its 6,435 kilometers of track, the state-owned railway covers the entire country. But as we have seen, it is slow and overcrowded. This is mainly due to the imbalance of population. 70% of Korea's inhabitants live in the corridor between Seoul and Busan, and these trains are full all year round. What is the solution? Korea has decided to take the great leap forward and create high-speed lines of the TGV variety. Beyond reunification with the North, which will happen one day, Korea has ambitions on an international level. To be the base of a future high-speed line to Vladivostok, the Trans-Siberian to Europe, to Beijing and the rest of China. This is the dream for the 21st century, but where trains are concerned, plans must be made long in advance. The French, the Japanese, and the Germans are in competition. The French project is the most concrete, with its world rail speed record, its experience with speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, and its TGV sales to Spain and the United States. Choosing the Japanese offer would make Korea more dependent on a country with a tendency to dominate and which already has a very strong presence here. Too strong, some say. But the mathematics used by politicians and financiers often do not add up to the best solution. All that, however, is premature. Right now, we're traveling at 80 kilometers an hour and not 300. We're coming into Busan, Korea's second largest city. The suburban passenger traffic is getting heavy. In Korea, however, even near large cities, we are never far from the country and its traditions. The men work the land, and the women sell their farm products in the market, an ancestral right of the peasant world. Busan, last stop.
여기는 부산역입니다. 여기는 부산역입니다. 보십시오. 오늘도 제철소를 이용해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다.
Busan, in the extreme south of the country, has a population of 4 million. and is growing at an incredible rate. The government retreated here when the North invaded. 850,000 refugees followed and remained there. The city is growing by more than 1,000 inhabitants a month. School uniforms are the rule here. The city is primarily an active, bustling seaport. Three-quarters of all of Korea's imports and exports pass through this immense harbor. Passenger traffic is also heavy. Japan is only a few hours away by sea. The fishing port continues to increase its production. Little by little, it's beginning to export to all countries. This small island on the west coast has its own history. In the 8th century, the king Munmu buried himself in the sunken rock so that his warrior soul could protect Korea from a Japanese invasion. Yes, even back then. A mystic site haunted by the Mudang, or shaman, the priestess of shamanism. Shamanism, the oldest religion in the world, born before all others, was universal. It is the religion of man, bare and distressed, besieged by evil spirits which have inhabited the earth, sky, and sea, and pursue the living. It's a religion without a church, with secret ceremonies. Without admitting it, all Koreans turn to it in times of crisis, sickness, marital infidelity, or failure. The Mudang is the mediator who calms the angry gods and renders them benevolent. Her prayers are incantations. She alone possesses the keys to the religious rites which satisfy the spirits, whom she showers with gifts. In the inextricable spirit jungle, there are thousands of gods. She knows what to offer each of them. Drawings of palaces are burned as offerings to the spirits. The flames carry the effigies to the beyond, where in that cosmic universe they will become real palaces of jade decorated with jewels. Physical contact leaves the person's mark on the drawing and lets the gods know the identity of the mortal who invoked him. This man is a merchant afraid of losing a contract. Such a ceremony is reported to cost an average month's salary. The ceremony is over. Why just now? We will never know. The priestess has decided that the divinity is satisfied and the merchant is therefore protected. They didn't even glance at us. From his rock, the soul of King Munmu stands watch. We move further away from the mainland to another Korean possession, the island of Jeju, not far from Japan. It's a day's trip by boat. Jeju is a vacation spot. Students go there in droves after their final exams. More and more devoted to tourism, Jeju preserves a strong sense of the past. In the 13th century, Mongol hordes surged into China and occupied Korea. They used Jeju as a base to launch 2 invasions of Japan. They failed both times. A race of small horses remain from this bygone era. They're waiting in vain for the return of their fearless horsemen, who left 7 centuries ago. Besieged by Korean patriots, the Mongols took refuge on this small island and resisted their enemy until death. On the island, these forgotten stones, called grandfather statues. Their origin is unknown, and no one knows what they represent. Devoid of all power, they are nevertheless preserved by the superstitious fear of any mysterious effigy. A message tree, another aspect of shamanism. Believers write down what they want from the spirits on white paper. The wind will carry their wish. White is the symbol for the harvest. It implies autumn, empty fields, impending death. It therefore pays homage to the trees in the hereafter. Gifts accompany the wishes. These packages contain offerings to thank the spirits for their generosity. Here we see another form of wishing. Each stone represents a request made to the gods. Scattered throughout the fields are shaman burial mounds. Such graves can be found from Siberia all the way to the Altai, where the Koreans originated. The bodies were surrounded with precious ornaments, so most of the graves have been pillaged. Luckily, a number of mounds were found intact. In one 8th century tomb, the solid gold royal crown was found. At the time, there was no separation between spiritual and temporal power. The king was also a high priest. The symbolism is Siberian. In the center, the cosmic tree, the pillar of the universe. Its trunk represents man, its branches the different levels of the heavens, its summit reaches the gods. The antlers on each side symbolize virility and longevity. Hanging from the belt, tiger claws, a fish, and a dagger, supple and sinuous. The the strength and power of he who can dispense death. These women are not going to the beach. They are divers on their way to work. There are only about 50 of them left on the island, as it's a dangerous profession. The youngest is 40. The others are in their 60s. In the past, they began at the age of 15. Today, however, young girls would rather work in the hotels. It's less adventurous, but a lot safer. They dive in the shoals just off the basalt cliffs. The entire island was volcanically formed. There are 356 extinct craters. Oddly enough, these divers have managed to reverse the ancestral male-dominated order. In this society, shaped by more than 1,000 years of Confucianism, they have triumphed over the men. The husband stays at home, does the cooking, and looks after the children. There are no male divers, only women. They use wetsuits and flippers, but no tanks. For their safety, they work in teams of 3. A net to hold the catch is tied to a buoy. The buoy also marks the spot where they've dived. They remain underwater for 2, sometimes 3 minutes, at a depth of 10 to 15 meters. The sea bottom is sand. They go for clams, a delicacy for seafood lovers. They bring up 1 each time, and they dive 6 to 8 hours a day if the swell permits. If it doesn't, they don't dive at all. Their earnings are equivalent to the minimum wage. A song rises from the waves. 100 years ago, this same song was heard on all the coasts of this volcanic island. Couplets which will soon be washed away forever. We've left the island of Jeju and are heading back to Seoul, only a 5-hour train trip. The country is small, 400 kilometers from south to north.
영산구역에서는 30초간 정차합니다. 감사합니다. 일본과의 조선 수주량 격차가 지난해보다 더욱 확대될 가능성이 있을 것으로 전망됩니다. 이와 같이 우리나라와 일본, 조선 산업 사이의 격차가 크게 확대되고 있는 것은 동해에서 서해가 지난 98년에 심한 노사 분별을 넘었습니다.
The newlyweds we met on the Busan train are headed home. The woman is wearing the traditional daong, a taffeta-like dress so light it's said to have been woven by the wind. It's the customary attire when returning from a honeymoon. The train station is still teeming with passengers. Downtown, an enormous esplanade to stroll, to play. Actually, it's an auxiliary landing strip for fighter planes. North Korea is 5 minutes away by air. The specter of a surprise attack remains a concern. Here, everything has been borrowed. Majorettes from the USA, music from Mexico, and costumes from a fanciful notion of the Italian Renaissance. Indeed, South Korea remains eternally young.
나에겐 첫사랑이 있었죠. 너무 아름다웠던 그러나 그 사람은 야속히도 내 곁을 떠나버렸죠. 그 후론 몹시 아파했죠. 못 이룬 첫사랑의 꿈을 다시는 사랑을 안 하리라 굳게 마음먹었죠. 그러나 알 수 없는 건 사랑의 마음.
See you on the next World's Greatest Train Ride Video Adventure.